Hey there. So this is going to be a quick recap and overview of the information and areas that need to be set up, and the information needs to be collected in courses in order for us to accommodate ProctorU Live Plus exams during the summer 2020 term. And so we'll start off with the first, instance of logging into Blackboard. So once you're in there, we'll go into courses to access any of the courses that you have. And so when we log in here, we'll see on the course navigation pane, we have a different set of options. So we're going to go into where it says Proctored Assessments. And so this is what's normally set up in the MDC Online Master courses. And we'll see in this area, we have the Proctored Assessments information, as well as two folders. And this folder here, this Proctored Local Assessments folder, this is set up for standard exams that are usually taken at the MDC testing centers. And these exams do have an IP address filter associated with the setup. However, in this case, we're going to be focusing on the remote exams, which do not have an IP address filter set up. So if you go into this actual folder here, we'll go ahead and we'll see if the exam is posted. It may be available or it may not be. This is an older class, so it should not be available. But if I go ahead and go into the edit, the test options, we can then see we have abilities to manipulate some of this information. So the first thing that we'll need is to make sure that the test does not open in a window. That's going to be requirements. We also want to make sure the exam is going to be available to students. However, we want to make sure that this is set up to open and close on a specific date. But before I get to that, we also want to make sure that any kind of forced completion is set up. So if we want the student to finish the exam in one sitting, meaning that if they were to exit out of the exam and go back in, this will make sure the exam is submitted automatically once they exit out. It will not allow the timer to continue. This is another area that we will need to collect, is the allotted time for the exam. So the maximum allotment of time on a standard time allotment is 120 minutes. So any time that you're going to associate with your exam needs to be put in here. You can also indicate the auto submit off or on. A note about time is that this standard time allotment, if you do have a access student in your class who is entitled to an ABA extended time accommodation, this time will need to be doubled for that particular student, and we'll get into that in a moment. But in terms of the display and the availability of the exam, this is where that's managed. So we want to make sure that this exam is going to be open during dates that coincide with the exam window assigned by MDC Online for the respective proctored assessment windows. So just for an example, we're going to go ahead and make sure, let's say that the exam should be open right now. So today is going to be June 1st, and I'm going to say it's going to be open until, let's say, the end of the week. So I'll do June 5th. That's going to be the information we need to collect. And it's really important that your exam open at 12 a.m. on that first day, and that it closes at 11:59 p.m. on the last day. On ProctorU side, their exam appointments will end at 9:30 p.m. and that is to accommodate a identity verification and authentication process, which can take up to 30 minutes and then up to 2 hours of test time, which will put them right at the 11:59 p.m. deadline here. The other area that we want to make sure is set up and that we need to collect is the password. So this is going to be an 8-digit or 8-character password that would protect the integrity of the exam. So this is something that should never be shared with students, and it should only be shared with the testing directors and with ProctorU. And if there are any issues with the exam password, ProctorU will reach out for support. If there is no exam password here, this means that any student will be able to access the proctored assessment, which would then be a violation of the UFMDC agreement, which entails that these exams cannot be administered in a non-proctored setting. So we got to make sure that, again, that password is set up and provided accurately to the testing centers, and that this area here, this is your IP address filter. We got to make sure this is not set up, because if this is activated, students will not be able to access the exam remotely. So coming down here, this test availability exceptions area is kind of where we go for any student who does need a extended time accommodation, such as an access student, whether they have double time, some have triple. It all depends on what's on that access letter. So in the event that you do have an access student, faculty really need to make sure that they're going in here to set this up ahead of time. If they do not set this up ahead of time, ProctorU will not be able to accommodate or honor that extended time accommodation. So to do so, we'll go into that folder or into that area like we've seen, or like we saw, and we'll go into select the student, kind of press submit. And we'll see here that they have a standard time allotment of 120 minutes, which matches the timer up here. So in this case, let's say, for example, they are entitled to double time. I'm going to then change this to 240 minutes. Just tab on over to make sure that registers, and I'm good to go. I do have the auto submit function enabled on my exam, if there's a preference from the faculty member. This availability here is going to be left blank. That way it matches the dates that are coinciding with the display after and display until. However, if you do want to allow a student to test before or after the fact, this would be the area in which you would indicate those dates. However, if you are going to do so, you will need to communicate directly with the testing centers in order to make those arrangements and to see if that's at all possible. But again, these exams do need to be taken during the assigned exam window that's allocated and signed by NBC Online. This due date area down here is not really required. You can set it up just for your record keeping purposes. Essentially, if you set this up, this will make sure that a student is not able to access or complete the exam after that date has passed. But truthfully, this is also managed with a display until date. The other area that we want to make sure is set up is the include test and grade center score calculation. This makes sure that whatever exam is set up is done so through the actual grade center. So just make sure that that's set up there. The only other area in terms of showing your results is you want to make sure that you have at least this area set up, this score per question. That way it does give them that kind of a one-time view after they finish the exam. So in terms of how the exam is presented to the students, you have a couple of options. You can do so all at once, where they can kind of go freely back and forth through the exam, or you can present one question at a time, and you can even prohibit backtracking, which prevents a student going back to previous questions. In another, attempt to increase exam security, you also have the option to randomize your questions, and so that'll be something that you can set up or you can select as you see fit. So in short, that's pretty much all the information that we would need to collect. You don't need to set up an exam. For the most part, this is all going to be already set up in the master course of NBC Online. So the only thing that you would need to go into to adjust would be, or not adjust, but to verify are the exam settings. So again, what we will need is to make sure that the exam is going to be available to students, that there is a timer, and if so, that is indicated here. The display after, display until date, the password can be lump 4228, and copy that for a quick example. If you have any access students that their accommodations are entered prior to the start of the exam, here in the test availability exception, and that you have the test in the grade center column and calculations, and that ultimately you decide how you want to present it. So if we're going to go to press submit, what we can do is kind of take a look and see what this will look like for a student. So if I enter a student preview, I'm going to go into Proctor exam area. I'll go into my local, I'll see there's nothing there because I have not set up this exam. But if I go into my remote, I will see this exam has been set up. And so it has a quick overview as to what the instructions are. When I click there, it'll kind of prompt me to go to the next area. Okay, see, I entered extended time accommodation. So even though I had 120 minutes as a standard, it knows that my preview user account has 4 hours. So I will press begin. At this point, I'm prompted for the password. This will be the area or the time where ProctorU will take temporary control of the student's computer to enter the exam password. So since I copy and pasted this, I'm just going to do that there. Press submit, and it should take me right into the exam. And again, ultimately, a student does have this timer appear that monitors your status, and they'll be able to go through the exam and hopefully score well and earn a good grade. So that is ultimately setting up your exam in Blackboard and the areas that you will need to collect to accommodate the exam through ProctorU. So in addition to making sure that the exam is set up properly in the Blackboard LMS and that the settings are set up correctly, we want to go over the different support that is available to students when they do tests with ProctorU. So if we go into the main NBC Online website, under our student resources page, we have a testing information area. And this really has all the information students need for testing. And so there are a couple things that we want to make note of. Is this one here is first, test your equipment for ProctorU. So this is a tool that's used to call, quote unquote, test it out. And this makes sure that their camera's in check, that their microphone's working, they need flash, that it's active. This is going away, so it's not really relevant right now, but making sure that everything in their system is up to date where it needs to be in order to properly accommodate the service. So if they are having trouble, this is where they can kind of go in to connect with a live technician with ProctorU. By filling in this form, we'll connect them directly to a support technician who can help troubleshoot their issue. But let's assume that everything here went correctly, everything went well. So they're good there. What they would want to look at next is kind of see what's going on in terms of the ProctorU student checklist. And so this pretty much has all the information that they need about how to get started, how to log in, what's going to be required of them. And so we'll see here they have a link to log into ProctorU. This takes them straight to that login page. Let me go back to the PDF. What the ID requirements are. So we do follow and adhere to the MDC testing requirement and acceptable IDs. So we'll see here that a student needs at least a driver's license or some kind of a Florida government issued ID, and MDC student ID card will pretty much be acceptable in this case. So we go back to our checklist. Other things that we want to indicate here is that they need to know their username before they connect with the exam or the proctor. So if they reset their account's credentials there, this pretty much takes them out to that page where they would be able to reset their password prior to that exam starting. The other couple things we want to note here is that they do not support Chromebooks. And so this is something that is not unique to ProctorU. This is something that a Respondus Monitor also does not support. So with the Chromebooks, essentially, they would not work with the service. This essentially here shows the minimum technical requirements. And again, it kind of links out that test my equipment link out here. And so going back to the checklist, we'll see the other thing that they might want to consider in terms of support is this getting started portal. So this pretty much has a process of A to Z about what it's going to look like and what they need to do to kind of get ready to take the exam. And so it actually goes over the expectations, the tech requirements, special notices for Mac users of Catalina X or higher, the other requirements, things that are not supported, i.e. Chromebooks and tablets, the exam readiness guide, what they need to do beforehand. So we want to make sure they are clear in terms of their testing area. This will all generate delays and additional, incidents for the student, kind of talking about what their environment needs, what their ID, they should have that handy, knowing the information before they log in, and their policy on restroom breaks, right? So this essentially is another way that the student can prepare and get ready for the exam with ProctorU. And of course, here we have the information that adhere to the MDC college policies, such as testing and behavioral guidelines, code of conduct, and such. The last point or last piece that students can rely on is this live chat feature here, which essentially, when they open that up, it opens up a brand new chat with ProctorU. They would fill this out, and essentially it connects them with a representative to help them work through any kind of issue they may be having, whether it's scheduling, technical, whatever the case may be. So this ProctorU checklist is usually posted to the MDC Blackboard main institution page right around here, usually during the proctor assessment periods. But again, it is available for public access right now on the MDC online testing website under student resources and under ProctorU. Of course, if students have any other issues, they can always call ProctorU directly. Down here, their phone number is included. It's 1-855-772-8678. Lastly, they can always reach out to the MDC Online Student Support Center for assistance at 305-237-3800 or online at mdc.edu. Bear in mind that the Student Support Center can only assist in terms of kind of seeing what the student needs in terms of connecting with the proctor, or if they have any trouble in the appointments in the system. However, if there are any issues that are specific to the exam settings, that would need to be addressed by the faculty and the CIO department directly. And so that is one of the major supports for ProctorU as students go into their proctored exam sessions for summer.